You're telling me real humans? Actual, breathing, flesh and blood humans are on their way here. Navigator Zilix's voice climbed into a pitch so sharp that the ship's environmental monitors issued a soft warning beep. That is what the transmission states, replied Captain Vereen, her 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession, the unmistakable Calarian sign of stress. The Galactic Council approved their dispatch in answer to our distress call. Zilix's tendrils tightened against his chest plating. They're Deathworlders, Captain. Class 12. Did no one think to mention that tiny detail before we asked for help? The general consensus, Vereen said dryly, mandibles clicking in a semblance of grim humor, was that we were out of time, yesterday. And besides, they're sending a diplomatic vessel, not an assault craft. Oh, wonderful, Zilix muttered with acidic sarcasm. A diplomatic crew of beings evolved to withstand conditions that would turn our organs into soup. What could possibly go wrong? From the comms station, Officer Nix spun in her chair, her bioluminescent spots flickering with excitement. According to the manifest, the ship is called the Relentless. That doesn't exactly scream diplomacy, Zilix grumbled. It was apparently the nearest vessel able to reach us in the necessary time, Vereen explained. The humans classify it as a rescue craft. Zilix's laughter sac gave a sharp, wheezing inflation. Rescue, sure. Because nothing says peace quite like a ship named Relentless. Vereen's tone hardened. Would you prefer we stay stranded here on this desolate moon until the Council finishes its paperwork? The colony is down to its last atmospheric stabilizers. 200 crew and settlers are trapped under the avalanche, and the spores from that native organism are eating through our filters. The bridge fell silent, save for the beeping of life support warnings. Fine, Zilix said at last, voice stiff. But when they arrive, I'm staying aboard, in my environment suit, with a stunner armed and ready. Noted, Vereen replied, unimpressed. We should prepare to receive them. The Relentless will arrive in 6 rotations. Nix's spots flickered with faint amusement. Correction, Captain, updated arrival time is 2 rotations. Vereen's outer eyes widened. 2? That's not possible. The closest jump point. They said, and I quote, hold tight. We're taking a shortcut. Aboard the Earth Emergency Response Vessel Relentless, Commander Alexei Volkov stood in the command center with arms folded, studying the tactical holo. Around him, the crew moved with the smooth precision of people who had trained for years to meet impossible deadlines. Talk to me, Lieutenant Reed, Volkov said, his voice low but carrying easily over the hum of the consoles. Sir, Reed answered, hands gliding across a shimmering control display, we've got trouble on the outer moon of Proxima Centauri. Calarian mining settlement, about 800 personnel. Local terrain instability caused what they're calling an avalanche, more like a slide of metallic hydrogen layers. 200 trapped. Life support failing. There's also some kind of hostile bioform attacking their filtration. Volkov's nod was curt. How long do they have? Their captain projects full system collapse in 9 days. We can be there in 2 if we cut through the Kuiper belt. A low whistle came from navigation. Through the debris fields? Even for us, that's reckless. Volkov's lined face curved into a humorless smile. Reckless is relative, Lieutenant Kowalski, especially when judged by alien standards. What do we know about Calarians? Methane atmosphere breathers, adapted to 0.7 Earth gravity, Reed recited. Silicon-based biochemistry. Oxygen exposure corrodes their tissue, even trace contact would be damaging. Then we go in full rescue gear, Volkov ordered. Containment protocols. 0 cross-contamination. Chief Engineer Daniels didn't look up from her console. And yet they think we're the dangerous ones. We are, Volkov said with quiet certainty. Which is exactly why we're the ones going. He turned sharply. Kowalski, plot the Kuiper route. Reed, inform the Calarians. ETA 2 days. Daniels, ready the rescue modules and atmospheric converters. Make sure we can output methane if necessary. Daniels finally glanced up, eyes dark and steady. The shortcut will push hull tolerances hard. Gravitational compensators at 120% minimum. Will it kill us? Volkov asked. Probably not. Good enough. He swept his gaze over the bridge crew. They see us as monsters from a death world. Let's prove to them that sometimes, monsters are exactly what you need when death comes knocking. The bridge came alive in motion. Volkov allowed himself a rare, genuine smile. Humanity had feared the darkness for millennia, terrified of what might lurk beyond the stars. How poetic that, when they finally ventured into that darkness, they discovered they were what others feared. The Relentless dropped out of faster-than-light with a rippling shockwave that made Calarian sensors stutter. To Zilix's eyes, the vessel that appeared was sleek, menacing, a dark predator silhouetted against the stars, with blue navigation lights pulsing along its edges and heavy, armored modules on its underside. By the ancestral mists, Zilix whispered. That is not a diplomatic craft. It's a rescue ship, Vereen corrected, though her tone wavered. Humans specialize in crisis response. Because they evolved on a planet constantly trying to kill them, Zilix retorted. Their emergencies probably involve wrestling predators in boiling acid. Nix's voice broke in overcoms. Captain, incoming transmission from the Relentless, visual and audio. Put it through. Vereen straightened into her official diplomatic posture. The view screen flickered and then the human appeared. Zilix suppressed a shudder. Tall. Upright. Encased in what looked like a hardened blue and silver exoskeleton. A transparent dome revealed a nearly flat face, save for a protrusion at the center, and, most unsettling of all, two forward-facing eyes, cold and focused. The kind of eyes made for hunting. Greetings, Captain Vereen, the human's voice came, steady and clear through the translator. Commander Alexei Volkov, Earth Emergency Response Vessel Relentless. We received your distress signal and are here to assist. Vereen responded with the formal Calarian gesture of welcome, pressing her upper limbs together in solemn respect. Commander Volkov, your swift arrival is greatly valued. Our circumstances have become severe. The human's facial plates shifted, lips curling back to reveal underlying bone structures. The xenobiology files had called this a smile. On a predator species, however, Zilix thought it looked uncomfortably like a warning. We're fully aware of your situation, Captain, Volkov said evenly. My crew is preparing to deploy rescue modules rated for unstable geology. We've brought atmospheric stabilizers compatible with methane respiration, along with a full set of biological countermeasures to neutralize your spore issue. Zilix blurted without thinking, You just happen to have all of that equipment ready to go? The human's gaze snapped toward him, those forward-facing eyes locking on. Zilix felt a cold spike along his central nerve strand. First Navigator Zilix, I presume? Volkov asked. Zilix hesitated, then confirmed. The Relentless is built to respond to emergencies across a wide range of species environments, Volkov explained. Our systems are modular. We can adapt to most known biochemistries in hours. Being prepared for anything is the job. Impressive, Vereen said, with a pointed look at her navigator. We weren't expecting such depth of preparation. Humans have a saying, Captain, Volkov replied. Expect the best, prepare for the worst. His expression hardened. I'll need a complete situational brief. My science officer already analyzed your moon's geological makeup, but we'll require more detail on the landslide area and the trapped colonists. Zilix itched to point out how unsettling it was that they had completed a geological scan in mere moments after arrival. But Vereen was already nodding. Of course, Commander. We'll send you all the data we have. Communication with the trapped survivors is erratic at best. The metallic hydrogen layers are interfering with signals. We anticipated as much, Volkov said. We'll run ground-penetrating radar when we arrive on site. Captain, with your consent, I'll bring the Relentless into low orbit and dispatch an advance team to your command center. Vareen paused only briefly before replying, Granted. We'll prepare for your arrival. The transmission cut. Zilix turned toward his captain, antennae quivering. You're allowing them to come here? In person? We asked for aid, Vareen said firmly. They crossed multiple star systems to give it. The least we can do is offer proper reception. Hospitality, Zilix muttered. To creatures from a world with gravity strong enough to crush us, who breathe air that corrodes our bodies, who consider blood-boiling heat a pleasant summer afternoon. Yes, Vareen said simply. Because those nightmare Deathworlders may be the only reason our people survive. 6 hours later, Zilix stood in the colony's primary docking bay, posture tight with unease as the human shuttle descended. Despite his protests, Vareen had volunteered him for the welcoming party, citing that it would broaden his xenobiological experience. The craft was smaller than he had imagined, but carried the same intimidating edge as their larger vessel. Sleek, angular, efficient, yet unmistakably built with the potential for force. A hiss of equalizing pressure signaled the opening hatch. Zilix instinctively took a half-step back. The first figure out was Volkov himself. Even in the sealed environmental suit, his frame was imposing, tall, solidly built, and moving with an unsettlingly smooth grace for someone evolved under brutal gravity. For more humans followed, each hefting gear cases that would require at least 2 Calarians apiece. Captain Vareen, Volkov's voice crackled through the suit's speakers. Thank you for welcoming us. Is the methane-oxygen balance comfortable? Perfectly suitable, Commander, Vareen replied. Your consideration is appreciated. Zilix noted the thin haze around each suit, a deliberate atmospheric adjustment to maintain methane levels in their immediate space. The thought that these predators had taken the trouble to adapt for their comfort was unexpectedly disarming. These are my senior officers, Volkov continued, gesturing in turn. Lieutenant Reed, my second-in-command. Dr. Okafor, Xenobiology. Chief Engineer Daniels. Lieutenant Kowalski, Navigation and Terrain. Each human gave what Zilix assumed were respectful gestures, though on such alien anatomy, certainty was impossible. And here, Vareen said, nudging him forward, is First Navigator Zilix, and our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Thrix. Volkov's gaze fixed on Zilix again. Navigator, your reputation precedes you. I understand you once piloted through the Persephone Nebula? Zilix's antennae twitched in genuine surprise. You know of that? We make a habit of studying notable accomplishments from other species, Volkov replied. Especially extraordinary navigational feats. Before Zilix could respond, an alarm wailed through the docking bay. Vareen's communicator chimed sharply. Captain. Officer Nix's voice came, tight with urgency. Southern Containment Dome has lost pressure integrity. We've got atmospheric venting in sectors 7 through 12. Evacuation protocols. Vareen ordered instantly. Get everyone to shelters. How many in the affected sectors? At least 50, Captain, and the emergency seals aren't responding. Control systems are down. What's the situation? Volkov cut in, voice all business. The contamination must have breached the dome systems, Vareen said, her inner eyes blinking rapidly, a sign of severe stress. We're losing pressure in our main agricultural and atmospheric processing quadrant. To Zilix's astonishment, the humans didn't pause. Reed, Kowalski, portable stabilizers, Volkov barked. Daniels, emergency seals. Dr. Okafor, prep for methane biological hazard. Then he turned to Vareen. Captain, we move now. My people can handle vacuum and emergency sealing. Lead us to the affected sectors. But, Zilix began. The southern quadrant is decompressing. Even with your suits, the structure's unstable. It's too dangerous. Volkov gave him a look, not hostile, but with a weight Zilix couldn't read. Navigator Zilix, with all due respect, this is exactly what humans are built for. As the mixed Calarian human team sprinted through the colony's narrow corridors toward the failing dome, Zilix's mind churned. Every xenobiology lecture, every dire warning about Deathworlders, suddenly seemed inadequate. These beings weren't retreating from danger, they were charging straight into it. The southern containment dome was chaos incarnate. Pulsing crimson emergency lights washed over fleeing colonists, their shadows jerking across bulkheads. A steady hiss of escaping air underscored the tension, an audible reminder that every second meant less breathable atmosphere. Security crews ushered civilians toward shelters, their voices raised over the alarm klaxons. Volkov took in the scene in a single, sweeping glance, eyes narrowing, assessing threats, resources, and possible entry points. Even from the relative safety of the antechamber, the breaches were visible, jagged rents in the dome's reinforced walls, laced with creeping patches of some dark, glistening growth. "That's no standard structural failure," Dr. Okafor said, already scanning with a compact analysis unit. "Biological infiltration. An extremophile organism is digesting the dome's framework." "The spores," Captain Vereen muttered grimly. "They've accelerated their replication." Nearby, Lieutenant Reed was already unloading sleek, silver canisters, portable atmospheric stabilizers bristling with control nodes. "Commander," she called, "we can place these at the main ventilation hubs. They'll saturate the area with methane-rich air to offset the leak. But it's a stopgap, maybe 2 hours." Chief Engineer Daniels was poring over a structural schematic handed over by a visibly rattled Calarian technician. "The primary seal controls are here," she pointed, indicating a section uncomfortably close to the worst breach. "If I reach them, I can force an override and re-engage emergency protocols." "That's suicide," the technician chittered, wide-eyed. "That area's decompressing fast. And the organism, it's drawn to electrical systems." "How many still inside?" Volkov asked Vereen, his tone even. 47 confirmed life signs," she replied, voice taut. "Mostly agricultural staff and dome maintenance crews. Reed, stabilizers now. Buy us breathing room. Kowalski, chart a path to those life signs with minimal exposure to breaches. Daniels, assemble the emergency seal rig. Okafor, I need a counteragent to slow that growth." The human crew moved instantly, each slotting into their role without hesitation. Zilix lingered at the edge, feeling useless, caught between awe and dread. "You're not actually going in there?" he blurted. "That's the plan, Navigator," Volkov replied, calmly checking the seals on his methane-adapted suit. "But the compromised structure, the organism, the decompression. All hazards we train for," Volkov said simply. "Your people are in trouble. We're equipped to help. What's left to debate? Your suits can't possibly withstand." "Our suits," Daniels cut in, her voice tinged with pride, "can handle deep space vacuum, temperatures from near absolute zero to over 500 Kelvin, and crushing pressure differentials. They also carry nanites that auto-seal punctures." Zilix's tendrils curled in disbelief. "But why risk your lives? You barely know us, we're not even from your stellar sector." Volkov paused mid-check, meeting Zilix's gaze squarely. "Because when someone calls for help, we answer. Doesn't matter what species they are. Risk is our element. Saving lives is what we do." Before Zilix could answer, Reed returned. "Stabilizers in place, Commander. Atmosphere should hold at survival minimum for roughly 2 hours." "Good. Kowalski?" 3 possible routes to the survivors. Fastest runs through an area with active growth, but it'll get us there quickest. Okafor. The xenobiologist hefted something that looked halfway between a rifle and a spray unit. Concentrated alkaline solution infused with copper nanoparticles. Based on the scans, it should kill the organism without harming Calarian tech or biology. "Excellent." Volkov turned back to Vereen. "Captain, permission to initiate rescue." Varine's 4 eyes blinked in slow sequence, the Calarian gesture of deep respect. Granted, Commander. And thank you. As the human team readied for entry, Zilix stepped forward before he could second-guess himself. I'm going with you. Heads turned, Calarian and human alike. Navigator, Varine began cautiously. That's unnecessary. I know the dome systems better than anyone, Zilix interrupted, surprising even himself. And I've been studying this organism since it first appeared. You'll need that knowledge. Volkov studied him for a moment. Can your suit handle short-term partial vacuum? Yes, Zilix said, though the certainty in his voice wavered. Then you stay between Reed and Daniels at all times. Follow our lead. If we give an order, you obey instantly. Clear. Zilix straightened. Understood, Commander. At the airlock, Volkov placed a gloved hand on his shoulder, the weight startling, yet strangely grounding. One more thing. Back on Earth, we say, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's needed in spite of it. Keep that in mind. The airlock cycled. Inside the dome, Zilix's worst imaginings solidified into reality. The once orderly agricultural expanse was a twisted ruin, shattered metal, collapsed supports, and grotesque networks of pulsing, alien growth clinging to every surface. The organism had spread like a parasitic web, anchoring itself across breaches where thin plumes of methane-hazed air escaped into the black sky beyond. Life signs? Volkov asked. Reed checked her scanner. 3 clusters. Largest in central hydroponics, 200 meters ahead. They've sealed themselves in, but their oxygen-methane reserves are critically low. Structural integrity? Volkov prompted. Daniel's voice was grim. Organisms undermining key load-bearing support. I give us 90 minutes before the dome collapses. Then we move fast, Volkov said. Okafor, hit that nearest growth with your compound. Let's see how it reacts. Dr. Okafor approached one of the swollen, throbbing masses of alien growth that had enveloped what looked like an atmospheric regulator. Raising her modified sprayer, she gave the target a precise burst of the copper-laced alkaline mixture. The reaction was immediate. The living mat recoiled as though in pain, the pulsing purple sheen draining to a dead, ashen gray. It works, Okafor confirmed, studying the withered patch. But our supply is limited, we'll need to choose our targets carefully. Then our priority is clear, Volkov said. We carve a route to the colonists and to the main seal controls. Navigator Zilix, fastest way to central hydroponics. Zilix, still trying to push back the rising panic at watching his home be eaten alive, forced his mind into focus. He extended a tendril toward a shadowed archway. Through there, but the main passage will be crawling with infestation. There's a maintenance conduit that runs parallel, it might be less compromised. Show us, Volkov ordered, motioning him forward. They moved cautiously through the ruined dome. Every few meters they had to weave around collapsed beams or mats of the organism clinging to walls and floor. Despite his fear, Zilix couldn't help noticing how the humans moved, in tight formation, each keeping track of the others, their gestures and clipped words seamless with practiced efficiency. At the maintenance hatch, Zilix tapped his override sequence. The panel's lights flickered weakly before the door slid aside, revealing a narrow tunnel washed in the dim pulse of emergency lighting. This links directly to hydroponics, Zilix explained. Its atmospheric system is isolated from the dome's main circuit. Contamination should be minimal. Kowalski took point, scanning ahead for movement as the others filed in. They made it halfway when the tunnel shuddered violently under their feet. That's not a good sign, Daniels muttered, eyes scanning her readouts. Stress fracture, western quadrant. Dome's degrading faster than my worst-case estimate. Another tremor hit, harder this time. Zilix staggered, but Reed's swift reflexes, astonishing for such a large lifeform, kept him from falling. Commander! Kowalski's voice rang from up front. Movement ahead. Zilix's tendrils twitched uneasily. It's in the tunnels too, Kowalski added. But it's pulling back? Pulling back. Okafor hurried forward, scanner in hand. Her voice sharpened. No, not retreating. Converging. It's responding to the strain on the structure. Reed's weapon was already raised. How smart are we talking? Not true intelligence, Zilix answered. It's a colonial life form. Think your corals, slime molds. It reacts, adapts. Volkov's tone was grim. If the dome's close to failing, it's heading for the high stress points, where it'll feed off the collapse. Daniels glanced at her schematic. Hydroponics is sitting right under one of those points. Then move, Volkov ordered. They broke into a run. Even with bulky suits, the humans surged ahead easily, forcing Zilix to push himself harder than he ever had. The hydroponics lab erupted into view, a tight knot of 30 Calarians huddled in the center, while a few techs fought a losing battle with failing environmental systems. Above, the lab's transparent ceiling framed a nightmare. Fractures spiderwebbing across the dome, the organism crawling along every crack like a wound being infected in real time. "Medical Officer Thrix," a voice cried, mistaking Zilix in the methane haze. "You've brought the humans." He didn't bother correcting them. "Status?" he asked the nearest technician. "Atmosphere's at 23% of baseline," came the exhausted reply. "Reserves are gone. The organism got into the primary systems 2 hours ago." Volkov was already working, Reed taking a head count, Daniels and Kowalski inspecting the frame, Okafor sampling the intruder's filaments that had crept inside. "This lab won't hold," Volkov said at last. "We move them now. Navigator, is there any other exit?" Zilix checked his portable console. "There's an emergency evac shaft straight to the eastern dome." "But," Okafor finished the thought, "it passes through the main atmospheric processing hub, likely the heaviest infestation site." "Options?" Volkov asked, sweeping his gaze over his people. "We can try to burn through with what solutions left," Okafor offered, "but I can't guarantee it'll work against the main colony." "Reinforce here?" Reed suggested. "The lab's got its own life support, we could boost it with our portable units." "Not sustainable," Daniels interrupted. "Structure's too far gone. When the dome fails, this place goes with it." A deep tremor answered her, so strong that one of the floor plates cracked open. Several Calarians cried out. "No more discussion," Volkov said sharply. "We take the evac tube. Okafor, you and I cut a path. Daniels, stabilize the air along the corridor. Kowalski, fastest map to the eastern dome. Reed, get them organized to move." The humans scattered into action, each a moving part in a machine designed for disaster. Zilix found himself staring at Volkov, almost forgetting to breathe. "You're really going to do this," he said quietly. "Risk yourselves for people you've just met." Volkov glanced back. "What's the alternative? Let them die." "No, but we're taught that other species put their own survival first. That altruism stops at the species line." The human's mouth twitched in something between humor and challenge. "Then your teachers need to travel more." His expression hardened. "We come from a world that tries to kill us every day. We survived by helping each other, by running into the fire, not away. That's how we got here." Zilix's realization came out as a murmur. "You're called Deathworlders not because you bring death, but because you've learned to stand against it." "Something like that," Volkov said. Then his voice sharpened. "Now, are you helping or philosophizing?" For the first time, Zilix felt the steel in himself that the humans seemed to carry so naturally. "I'm with you." "Good man," Volkov said, clapping his shoulder hard enough to jolt him. "Let's move." The emergency shaft was a claustrophobic crawlspace choked with flickering lights and the stale tang of overworked filters. Every few meters, the alien growth loomed ahead. Each time, Okafor's spray sent it shriveling back, but the supply gauge on her pack was dropping fast. Daniels brought up the middle of the formation, setting compact atmospheric stabilizers at intervals to keep a thin layer of methane-rich air in the corridor for the struggling Calarian civilians. Zilix found himself walking at the heart of the group, helping the weakest along, some limping, others shivering from prolonged exposure to the thinning atmosphere. Reed and Kowalski trailed at the rear, scanning constantly for structural instability and making sure no one fell behind. They had covered roughly half the distance toward the eastern dome when Kowalski's voice cut in sharply over comms. "Commander, seismic activity. The whole moon is." The warning dissolved into a blast of static as the entire evacuation tube lurched violently. The shriek of twisting metal tore through the air, and a section of the ceiling caved in behind the last cluster of colonists. Reed lunged forward, throwing her armored frame over two young Calarian children, shielding them from the falling debris. "Status." Volkov's voice cracked through the comms, already moving back down the line. "Tubes compromised," Reed answered, climbing to her feet with a child cradled under each arm. "Back route's gone. Forward path is still clear." "Commander," Okafor called from the front, "I'm getting increased organism readings ahead. It's reacting to the seismic spikes." A stronger tremor hit, nearly slamming the group into the tube walls. "This isn't just the dome," Daniel said grimly, scanning her instruments. "The moon's crust is destabilizing. We may be looking at a colony-wide collapse." Volkov didn't hesitate. "Change of plan. Eastern Dome is no longer our target. Kowalski, plot the fastest route to the landing pad. We're pulling everyone off-world." "Sir, the Relentless can't take the whole colony," Reed reminded him. "No, but we can get these 30 to the orbital station. Captain Vereen needs to start full-scale evacuation now." Volkov switched to his long-range comm. "Volkov to Vereen, do you copy?" Only static replied. "Seismic interference," Volkov muttered. "I can fix that," Zilix said quickly. "Maintenance relays are designed to function during major structural failure." "Show me," Volkov ordered without missing a beat. Zilix darted to a nearby wall panel, miraculously still active, and worked the controls with swift, precise movements, bypassing locks and rerouting power. "There. We should have a direct line." Volkov leaned toward the comm Vereen emergency channel. "Do you copy?" A burst of distortion, then the captain's strained voice. "Commander, we've lost contact with half the settlement." "Report." "Captain, the moon's unstable. This is no longer just a dome or contamination issue. You must initiate full evacuation immediately." A pause. "Confirmed. Evacuation protocols engaged. All shuttles en route to collection point." "What's your position?" "We've secured 30 colonists from hydroponic. Moving to landing pad 3. The eastern dome route is blocked." "Understood. I'll divert resources to pad 3. Vereen out." Another shudder rattled the tube, this one lingering, groaning through the supports. "Move!" Volkov barked. Kowalski pointed to a side junction. "Maintenance access here, direct path to the pad structure." They pressed on, each step against the backdrop of worsening instability. Twice, Okafor had to burn through thick mats of the organism blocking their route, her dwindling supply gauge flashing in warning. Finally, the faint outline of the landing pad airlock came into view, and then the floor dropped beneath them. A thunderclap of metal tearing apart left a jagged gap yawning across the corridor, 3 meters wide. Beyond it, the airlock stood waiting, infuriatingly close. "We can't jump that," Zilix said flatly. "Our legs aren't built for it. Not in this gravity." "Then we build," Volkov countered instantly. He turned to Daniels. "Ceiling kit. Support struts." Realization lit the engineer's face. "It might hold, barely, but it's not meant for this load." "Make it work." Daniels yanked 3 telescoping supports from her pack, locking them together into crude bridge segments and wedging their ends into the bent flooring on both sides. While she worked, Volkov addressed the colonist. "We cross one at a time, 2 if you're small. Youngest and weakest first. My people go last." Another distant explosion reverberated through the structure. Kowalski glanced at his scanner. Main dome's gone. Eastern dome's down to 42% and dropping. Daniels straightened. Bridge is ready, but it's unstable. We move now. Go! Volkov ordered. The first colonists shuffled across, tendrils gripping the narrow supports. Every crossing took precious seconds, each one stretching unbearably long. By the halfway point, the tremors had become a near-constant vibration underfoot. Something's changed, Okafor said suddenly, eyes on her scanner. A rapid alarm pulse answered her. The organism, it's moving toward us. Fast. It's fleeing the collapse, Zilix guessed. Or tracking heat signatures, Reed added grimly. And fresh biomass. From the darkness behind, a nightmarish shriek of tearing metal echoed through the tube. Then they saw it, a roiling tide of purple-black tendrils, pouring toward them with predatory speed. Last colonists across now. Volkov roared. Reed, Okafor, go with them, get the pad prepped for immediate evac. Commander, Reed began. That's an order, Lieutenant. His tone cut off any further argument. Get them out. Reed's jaw tightened, but she obeyed, ushering the last of the Calarians over the makeshift bridge. Okafor came next, cradling a trembling Calarian child who had refused to cross alone. Now, only Volkov, Daniels, Kowalski, and Zilix remained on the far side, with the living tide of alien growth surging closer. I'm reading multiple structural failures, Kowalski reported tersely. This section will be gone in under 2 minutes. You three get across, Volkov said. I'll hold it back. Zilix froze, antennae rigid. Hold it off? How? The human commander drew a compact device from his belt, something that looked weapon-like but heavier, denser. Thermite charges. Last line of defense. They'll create a wall of heat the organism won't cross, for a little while. But the damage, Daniels began, is already fatal, Volkov cut her off. A few more scorched supports won't matter now. Go. All of you. Daniels and Kowalski reluctantly turned toward the bridge. But Zilix stayed rooted, staring at the alien who spoke of sacrificing himself as if it were just another task on a checklist. Navigator, Volkov said sharply. Move. No, the word surprised Zilix as much as anyone. I know this organism better than you. I can place the charge where it will matter most. You're needed on the other side to coordinate evacuation. For a moment the two locked eyes. Then Volkov gave a short nod. Daniels, Kowalski, across. Now. As they complied, Volkov handed Zilix one of the charges. Find the densest cluster of the main body. 30-second timer. Once it's armed, run. Zilix gripped the unfamiliar device in his tendrils. Go, Commander. I'll be right behind. With one last measuring look, Volkov crossed the jury-rigged bridge with a speed and balance that seemed impossible for his size. Zilix turned back toward the advancing horror. It was close now, tendrils writhing and pulsing with alien hunger. Summoning a burst of courage, he darted forward, slapped the thermite charge onto what he knew was a core nexus of the growth, and triggered the countdown. He spun to retreat, but misjudged the creature's reach. A tendril lashed out, wrapping around his leg and yanking him to the floor. The impact drove the air from his sacs as the organism began dragging him backward. Through the haze of fear, he saw movement, Volkov on the far side of the gap, pulling off his helmet. No! Zilix shouted. The atmosphere will destroy you. But the human didn't stop. He launched himself across the chasm in a single, powerful leap, landing beside Zilix. The exposed skin on his face and neck was already blistering, but he ignored it, seizing the tendril with bare hands and ripping it apart with raw strength. Move! Volkov gasped, hauling Zilix upright and practically shoving him toward the gap. Together they ran, the timer ticking down behind them. They reached the edge as another tremor split the flooring. Jump! Volkov barked. Zilix flung himself forward with every reserve of strength. He made it partway, upper body scraping onto the far side while his lower half dangled over open space, until human hands grabbed him, dragging him to safety. A blinding flash erupted behind them as the thermite went off, followed by a furnace-like wave of heat. But Volkov wasn't there. Zilix twisted to look, and saw the commander still stranded on the collapsing side. Flames walled him off from the organism, and from any route of escape. "Commander!" Daniel's voice cracked. Volkov, his skin reddened and swelling from the toxic atmosphere, gave a lopsided grin. "Get to the ship," he rasped. "That's an order." Then the floor beneath him crumbled, and Alexei Volkov vanished into the ruin. The shuttle lifted from landing pad 3 with only moments to spare as the entire southern half of the colony sank into the unstable lunar crust. Inside, Calarians huddled together, silent, shell-shocked. The human crew worked with mechanical focus, tending to injuries, monitoring seismic readings. Zilix sat apart, eyes fixed on the viewport as the surface buckled and collapsed below. His mind replayed the image of Volkov stripping off his helmet, charging through an atmosphere deadly to him, tearing the organism's grip away with nothing but brute force, and smiling as he told them to leave him. "Why?" he asked aloud when Reed sat beside him. He knew the danger. He knew. "Why give his life for me?" Reed was quiet for a long moment. "Because that's what we do. It's who we've always been. From the first human who ran into a burning building to save a stranger, to the moment we reached the stars." "But it's not rational," Zilix pressed. "Commanders don't throw themselves away for subordinates, especially alien ones." Reed gave a short, bitter laugh. "Logic had nothing to do with it. You were in danger. He could help. That's enough for a human." The shuttle docked with the Relentless, now in low orbit to assist the evacuation. Captain Vareen was there to meet them, eyes scanning the returning humans. "Commander Volkov?" she asked hopefully. Reed shook her head once. Vareen's antennae drooped in sorrow. "He saved us," Zilix said, stepping forward. "Saved me. At the cost of his life." Vareen bowed her head. "The Calarian people will remember him, for generations." Reed's voice was steel now. "Captain, we must finish the evacuation. The moon's core is unstable, total collapse in under 6 hours. Most of our people are already aboard the orbital platform," Vareen said. "The last shuttles are on their way." "Good. Once they're clear, we'll escort you to the nearest jump point." Reed broke off as the comm system chimed. "Lieutenant Reed," came a voice from the bridge. "We've picked up an anomalous signal on the surface. It matches Commander Volkov's emergency beacon. For a heartbeat, no one move." "Location?" Reed demanded. "Northern quadrant. Near a natural cave system. Life signs faint, but there." Reed was already striding for the exit. "Prep Rescue Module 2. Daniels, Okafor, with me. Kowalski, you're on bridge coordination." "Wait!" Zilix called after them. "I'm coming too." Reed stopped mid-stride, her forward-facing eyes fixing on him. "The whole moon is tearing itself apart. It'll be dangerous." "I know," Zilix said without hesitation. "But he came back for me. I won't leave him down there." A slow grin tugged at the corners of Reed's mouth, the same kind Volkov had worn when Zilix first volunteered to help in the dome. "Welcome aboard, Navigator." The rescue module plunged through the dying moon's atmosphere, its hull groaning under the strain of violent turbulence, wind shear, and erratic electromagnetic surges. Zilix clung to his harness, silently questioning his own sanity for agreeing to come. "Beacon still transmitting," Daniels reported from the pilot's seat. 7/10 of a click ahead, in what looks like a partially collapsed lava tube. "Life signs?" Reed asked, her voice taut. "Faint but there," Okafor replied. "And I'm picking up traces of the organism." "Of course," Daniels muttered. "Wouldn't want this to be too easy." Zilix glanced between the humans, marveling at their composure. They weren't ignoring the danger. Their every move and clipped exchange made it clear they understood the stakes. They simply refused to be frozen by it. There, Reed pointed ahead. Through the viewport, a faint blue pulse flickered in the jagged landscape. Daniels eased the module down onto a relatively stable patch of ground near the signal. The landing skids had barely touched when warning klaxons blared. Surface instability critical, the computer intoned. Recommend immediate departure. Noted, Reed said dryly. Suits sealed. Okafor, monitor the commander's vitals. Daniels, structural watch. Navigator, you're between us. Eyes open for the organism. We move in, grab Volkov, and get out. Questions? No one had any. They cycled through the airlock and stepped onto a surface that looked like the aftermath of a world-ending war. Wide fissures cut across fractured ground, venting columns of poisonous gas. The horizon twisted and shifted as seismic waves reshaped the terrain. In the distance, the shattered remains of the colony lay half-consumed by the spreading infestation. Beacons 50 meters, Okafor said, pointing toward a dark maw in the ground, a cavern entrance. Picking their way across the unstable surface, the humans naturally adjusted their stride to compensate for shifting gravity as underground gas pockets collapsed. Zilix struggled to match their pace, his body unaccustomed to such chaotic terrain. At the entrance, Reed swept her light into the darkness. 20 meters in, the beam caught on something metallic. "Commander?" she called, her voice amplified. A faint flash answered, the beacon's pulse weaker now but deliberate. "He's conscious," Reed said, a note of hope breaking through her discipline. They descended the sloping tunnel, the walls slick with shimmering liquid. "Not the organism," Okafor confirmed. "Hydrocarbon seepage." The tunnel opened into a chamber, and there he was, Commander Alexei Volkov, propped against a rock, suit torn and scorched, skin raw with methane burns. One hand clutched the beacon, in the other, a makeshift oxygen mask cobbled from salvaged suit parts. "Took you long enough," he rasped as they rushed to him. "How did you survive?" Zilix asked, stunned, while Okafor began treatment. "Fell into a maintenance shaft. Landed near an oxygen pocket. Volcanic vent kept me alive, barely." Daniels checked her readings. "He's right. Oxygen's low, but enough to keep him conscious if he rationed it. Atmosphere burns," Volkov muttered with a crooked half-smile. "Not recommended." "Save your strength," Reed said firmly. "We're getting you out." "The colonists?" Volkov asked at once. "All safe on the orbital platform," Reed assured him. "The moon's unstable, but they're clear." "We saved them," Volkov corrected, locking eyes with Zilix. "You placed that charge perfectly." Before Zilix could respond, a violent tremor rattled the cavern, sending rocks crashing from the ceiling. Daniel's scanner blared in alarm. "This chamber won't last," she warned. "We need to leave now." Reed and Okafor hauled Volkov upright, supporting his weight as he forced his unsteady legs into motion. They were almost to the tunnel when Okafor's scanner screamed a different alert. "Contact! Organism approaching fast." From a crack in the far wall, a tendril of purple-black writhed into the chamber, questing blindly. More followed, sliding over stone toward the exit. "It's sealing us in," Zilix said, his voice tight. "Options," Volkov demanded. "I've been analyzing its movement," Okafor said quickly. "It's drawn to complex carbon chains, organic material." "So it's hunting us," Reed concluded grimly. "Not all of us," Zilix said slowly. "Its preference is for Calarian tissue, silicon-based. Human biology is carbon-based, but different enough it might deprioritize you." "You're suggesting," Volkov began. "That I lead it away," Zilix said. "There's a narrow tunnel on the far side. I can fit, you can't. It might follow me long enough for you to escape with the commander." "Negative," Volkov said immediately. "We don't leave anyone behind. You're not. I'll rejoin you topside. But if we hesitate now, none of us make it out." Another quake shook the cavern. Daniel's voice was grim. "He's right. The whole place is going." Volkov studied Zilix for a long second, and for the first time, the navigator thought he saw something like pride in the human's eyes. "You're sure?" the commander asked quietly. "No," Zilix admitted with a nervous laugh. "But I learned from the best." "Sometimes courage isn't the absence of fear," Volkov said with a pained smile. "It's acting in spite of it," Zilix finished for him. "We'll see you at the module. 5 minutes, then we launch." "I'll be there," Zilix promised before darting away, moving as obviously as he could. The effect was immediate. The organism's tendrils snapped toward him, ignoring the humans entirely. Zilix drew it in wide arcs through the chamber, buying precious seconds for the others to guide Volkov into the main tunnel. When they were clear, Zilix sprinted toward the narrow fissure he'd spotted earlier. The passage was painfully tight, but his flexible Calarian frame compressed and wriggled through the stone. The tunnel wound upward, branching unpredictably. He chose every turn by instinct, straining to hear the pursuit behind him. Finally, he emerged into open air, but not where he needed to be. The rescue module was 100 meters away, its glowing engines ready for takeoff. Between them yawned a jagged fissure, and the ground beneath his feet was starting to crumble. From here, Zilix could see the ship's attitude shift. They were about to leave. The moon's final collapse was seconds away. He shut his eyes, accepting it. At least the colonists were safe. At least his death would have purpose. A deafening roar made him look again. The rescue craft had lifted, but instead of climbing to orbit, it swung toward him, skimming dangerously low over unstable terrain. The side hatch slid open, and Reed stood there on a safety line, her arm extended. "Jump!" her voice boomed over comms. For meters. Impossible for a Calarian. But Zilix thought of Volkov's impossible leap in the collapsing colony. Thought of the human words about what it meant to face death. He launched himself with every scrap of strength left in his body. Halfway through the arc, he knew he wouldn't make it. Then Reed's grip closed around his outstretched tendril, her Deathworlder's strength hauling him bodily into the hatch. The door sealed. Daniels shoved the throttles forward, and the module clawed skyward as the moon below tore itself apart. "Cutting it a bit close, Navigator," Volkov remarked from where he lay strapped to a medframe, pale but alive. "I've been studying humans," Zilix said, letting the exhaustion and relief wash over him. "You seem to have a talent for last-minute escapes." Volkov's laugh ended in a cough, but his eyes stayed bright. "Welcome to the club." 3 weeks later, Zilix stood on the observation deck of the Calarian refugee vessel New Dawn, watching the Relentless prepare to depart. The evacuation had been a complete success, all 803 colonists rescued before the moon's catastrophic failure. Now they were bound for a new settlement, a second chance. The hatch behind him hissed open, and Commander Volkov stepped through. He still carried a faint limp, and the scars on his face spoke of burns that even human medicine couldn't fully erase. But he was alive, and Okafor insisted he'd make a full recovery. "Navigator," Volkov greeted, coming to stand beside him. "Wanted to say goodbye before we head out." "You're returning to Earth?" Zilix asked, surprised at the pang in his chest. "Not right away. The Relentless has been reassigned to patrol this sector. Seems the Council was impressed with our performance. They want a permanent human presence out here." "I can't imagine why," Zilix said wryly. "Only risked your life multiple times, saved a whole colony, and discovered an organism that can eat our infrastructure. Just another day for a Deathworlder, I suppose." Volkov's smile was now something Zilix no longer found threatening. "Actually, I came to make you an offer. We need a new navigation specialist, someone who knows this region. Someone who's proven they keep their head when everything's falling apart." "You want me? On a human ship? Why not? You've got the traits we value: intelligence, adaptability, courage. And your different evolutionary background? That's an asset, not a drawback." "But I'm not a Deathworlder," Zilix protested. I evolved on a gentle world with hardly any hazards. And yet, Volkov countered, when faced with a collapsing moon and a predator that eats through steel, you didn't freeze. You adapted. You survived. He rested a hand on Zilix's shoulder, a gesture that now felt like camaraderie. Maybe being a Deathworlder isn't about where you come from, but how you face the moment when death arrives. Zilix looked past him to the starfield. His life until now had been plotted along safe, predictable chart. But in the chaos of the last 3 weeks, he'd discovered a truth about himself he'd never imagined. When do I start? Volkov grinned. Knew you'd see it my way. Report aboard at 0800. Fair warning, Reed runs a tight program for new crew. I'd expect nothing less from a ship full of Deathworlders, Zilix said, a new confidence in his voice. As Volkov turned to go, Zilix called after him. Commander, that saying you told me, about courage not being the absence of fear. What about it? I think I finally get it. Volkov's nod held genuine respect. Welcome to the crew, Navigator Zilix. 3 months later, an urgent signal reached Galactic Council headquarters. This is the Earth Emergency Response Vessel Relentless, answering a distress call from Sector 9. A spatial anomaly threatens the Zentari colony. All vessels clear the area, we're going in. Background analysis picked out another voice, calm, precise, delivering navigation coordinates with the assurance of a seasoned veteran. It was unmistakably Calarian. The Council knew the sound of it now. Once again, they hadn't just sent help. They had sent the Relentless. And this time, Navigator Zilix was leading the way.